The 24-year-old from Franklin, Tennessee has a passion for encouraging others. She's the lead singer of the six-sibling band Shaw, and she enjoys teaching music lessons on the side. She shares devotionals, lessons, tips, and travels from her many life experiences on all her lively social media platforms. Spend a few minutes with Macy and you will be inspired to dream big. Welcome back to another episode of Dream to Destiny. I'm so excited about our podcast today because, as you can tell, this is in person. So we haven't done this. It's actually our first episode in person. So that's super exciting. But I am so thrilled to have Macy with us today. And I'll let you tell her a little bit about their band and what they do a little later. But I'm just so glad to have her here today. We're going to have a super fun conversation just talking about some of your journey and your story and the things that God has brought you through over the years. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you grab your water or coffee or tea and come hang out with us. Well, I'm so excited for our combo today. It's going to be super fun. So let's go ahead and go to the beginning of your story, because something that I've talked about quite a bit on Dream to Destiny is how God gives all of us dream seeds. Like He puts these little things inside of our hearts, a lot of times even just as young children. And so I would love to hear the beginning of some of those dreams that God placed in your heart with music and what that looked like for you.
For sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I'm so excited about your podcast because I am so excited about the topic of dreams that God's placed in our heart. And when you reached out to me to be on here, I was just reading just about what you're doing. I was so excited because I love this topic. I love encouraging others in it because I truly believe that each and every one of us were born with a purpose. And I feel like God gives our strengths to all of us for a reason. And I feel like that reason is to ultimately glorify Him, but also to serve others. And so there's somebody that needs to hear your voice. There's somebody that needs to hear your written words. There's somebody that needs your cooking skills and acting skills and gardening skills and all of that. And so I'm so passionate about this topic. And for me personally, ever since I can remember, I was 3 years old, my first memory of like wanting to be on stage and singing. I've never had stage fright. Like I was always like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And at 4, my parents started me and my siblings off in violin at age 4.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yes, so I'm the third oldest of 10 siblings, and our parents started us all off in music. So I grew up in music, but it was always something that I knew, this is what I want to do. The older I got, God used a lot of people in my life to confirm that in me as well. And so I just received a lot of confirmation about it, and it was always just something that I was super, I just always knew in the depths of my soul, like this is what I'm supposed to do.
That's awesome.
And loved doing it. It was always just something that was so natural, and just loved music. Love sharing it with others.
That's awesome. I love that. And it sounds like your parents were pretty involved. I mean, obviously you were homeschooled, right?
Yes, I was homeschooled.
Okay,
all my siblings were homeschooled too.
So I think that always makes a huge impact. Like I love talking to other homeschoolers because parents play such a huge role in encouraging their kids to do what God's called them to do. So what did it look like in your family? What were your parents doing to kind of encourage you guys in that?
Loved my parents. They're amazing. I'm so thankful for them. I'm so thankful for how intentional they were with getting us started in something young. And the right now in our bands, there's 6 siblings that do the music, and the other 4 siblings aren't in the band. But all of the skills that they learned within music when they were younger, they still use to this day in other areas of their life. And so I'm just so thankful our parents were just so intentional in getting us to learn a skill. They were so intentional in us, whatever interest we had, if it was art or whatever. They were just like, let's get you lessons, let's, get these resources. And so they were very active in that. They always acted upon whatever we wanted to do, and they were very intentional in giving us outlets to do that. So places to perform and, places to share our gifts and talents. And so intentional would just be the word that comes to mind when I think of how my parents instilled that in me and my siblings.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's powerful because what if you wouldn't have had that?
Right.
You know, like, where would you be today? It's just so interesting to think about that huge impact that our parents have in encouraging us. And I know, like, a lot of our listeners maybe were not homeschooled and they didn't have that kind of environment. And so I think that, like, what would you say maybe to encourage people who have those dream seeds maybe as a little kid, but then years went by and they never did anything because they weren't encouraged. They weren't in an environment where that was being fostered. Do you have any encouragement for those who maybe had like a very different upbringing than you?
Yes. I would say that no one can ever take away what God has put in your heart. And so your own strengths, your own interest, the things that just come natural to you, the things that have always been just there for you, that's never there for an accident. And no one can take away that because God gave that to you. So only God can take that away. And there may have been years where maybe you feel like you ignored those gifts or you stuffed them under your couch, or maybe you allowed other people's discouragement or criticalness or whatever to keep you from that. But God ultimately knows. He's seeing the whole picture and he knows where he wants you to end up, and he's sovereign over that. And so the best time to start is just today. And one of the things that I've seen in my own life and so many other people's stories, that God redeems all things. And so there's people who have hurt you, or you've been hurt by, you feel like you face constant failure, rejection. Like, God is able to redeem that and to bring you stronger on the other side, and to use all of that for your good. Like, he promises to work all things together for good to those who love him and who are called according to his purpose, which we are called to do his purpose, what he's wanted us to do.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. That's so good. So let's talk a little bit more about the band and the beginning. And so we didn't really give a full intro. So if you want to even just share like what you guys do, what your music is like, and then the beginning of your band and how that all got started.
I would love to share. So like I said earlier, there are I'm third oldest of 10 siblings, so there's 10 siblings, and then 6 of us are in the band. And we've done music our whole lives. And so a lot of times people will ask us, like, how did you guys get started? Or, when did you guys first became a band? And it was kind of something that was always there because it's an all-sibling band. But we were all homeschooled. We were all did music together. And so it was just something that naturally we all did together, because it was like your sister singing in the other room, and, you'd come together. And our parents would take us, like, nursing homes, and we would do, like, concerts for the neighbors, like, in our living room. And we just really did some just performing wherever for loved ones and relatives. And we, as we got older, we were inspired by other family groups that we saw, or just other bands in general. And it really got the light bulb going on. We're like, oh, we would love to do this, like, as a band, and we would love to do this, take it on the road and perform. And we didn't even know what that looks like.
Do you know how old you were at that point?
At this point, I was around 14 or 15.
Okay.
At this point, I was around 14 or 15. And I'm the third oldest, so my sister above me was 17 and my brother was 19, so we're about 2 years apart, all of us siblings. And we would just, we would just do shows, and we really wanted to do this local show. And it was going to be like our first time ever performing in a band, and so we did that, and just one thing led to the next. And one of the things that I love to just look back is that all we knew is that we wanted to do music as a family. And during those early days, like, we didn't even know what that looked like. And so God really does carry you through those beginning years of, like, not really knowing and being naive and figuring out all the details and all of that stuff. And so we did this show for this local, it was this resort in town, this 5-star resort, and we did a Christmas show. And after that, we always did Christmas shows together. So for the next several years, we always did a local Christmas show in our very small town in California. And it was around 2015, 16, where we were like, hey, we want to take this on the road. We want to go cross country. And so my parents really encouraged me to just, like, if you want to do this, then just pick up the phone and start booking churches. So I did that. I started booking. I was around 15, 16. Did not know what I was doing. Like, I was Googling, like, how to book a church, and then whatever they'd say, I would, like, do it right there on the phone. And I definitely learned so much. And
I'm sure.
that grew me in more ways than I can count. Learn how to, like, sell over the phone and get outside your comfort zone. I mean, cold calling is not easy.
Right.
I have so much respect for people who do it full time. And so we started doing cross-country tours, and we started doing that, and we went on this one tour, and it was just really difficult. Like, we just weren't really like, a word I would use that I just didn't really feel united as a family in doing it. It was just more like, you know, some of the younger ones were just like, I don't really see the purpose in this, and, you know, we don't really want to practice, and, you know, it was kind of like, it was just a really disjumbled tour, and we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. We'd never done like a full cross-country tour like that. And when we came back home, we just had this huge family meeting, and we were just like, if we want to do this, we just have to really make some changes. We all have to be on the same page. And we said, let's do one more summer tour. It was going to be a 6-week summer tour cross country. And we just really want to do it right. We want everyone to have a fun time. We want everything to go good. And when we did that, we spent 2 weeks in Tennessee, 1 week specifically in Nashville, and we all just felt God calling us to be here. And we all just caught a vision of how the music could be bigger than ourselves, and how music really is a tool to bless people. And yes, it is so much for us to do. We love performing, we love doing music together, we just love being on stage, like we love that. But it's the people that we need people for what we do. And it's all about serving them and really making sure that they are being served in music and in, you know, just a high quality show, and in our interludes in music. And so we came back to California. We just all felt a peace about leaving and moving there, which was crazy because we were all born and raised California. We've never lived in any other state. And so my dad retired from his job. We sold our house and we left for tour all in the same day. And that was in June 2019.
That's crazy.
And we moved to Nashville, and it's been such a ride since then. I mean, we've been in like 6 different homes.
Oh my goodness.
We were like living out of an RV for like, I think a combined total of like 6 different months just in the various times.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, and it was just, there's been so many ups and downs and we've been here for 3 years in Nashville, and it's just been a huge, just a huge journey of faith. So many ups and downs, but I'm so thankful for that. So we do Christian contemporary music, and our goal in our music is to be family first, of course. That we are 6-sibling band, and it's really rare to find these days. Families to do music, and it's really difficult to, you know, keep unity and work together and still have fun together, and it's always something that we are praying about and working towards. But it's so rewarding to do it, and I'm so thankful I get to with my siblings, and it's just something I'm very thankful for. So
that's awesome. So I'm sure that unity must be huge and so important. How did you, when you made the decision to come to Nashville, like you said, it sounds like it happened pretty quick. How did that decision-making process go? Was it just like everyone felt peace about it and just was like, okay, let's do this? Or was there anyone who was like, I don't know if this is the right thing? What did that look like?
That's a really good question. It's interesting because I've never really thought about like what happens if there was like one that was like, I don't want to go. I've never really thought about that. So when it came to the band, at that time, our oldest brother was married. He lived in California, and he wasn't touring with us. He was married. He has his own business with his family, and it was all cool and chill. Like, everyone's supportive of everybody doing what they're doing. But when it came to the siblings in music, all of us were in music, and we all loved doing music. We all loved doing it as a family, and we just all saw this vision of like doing music together as a family, and really just, you know, doing things that had never been done before within family music, you know, and with just different genres and different like possibilities, and we just all felt unified. And I think that was just one of the things that really made us all know that like this is from the Lord, that everyone felt a peace about, and everyone was really unified on it. And it was just something that we all were just like, yes, let's go for it. And I think at that time, like, there was no really like, you know, like there was no room for anybody. I don't know quite how. It was like everyone felt so unified. So there was at no point. This is what I mean to say. There was no point where like no one not wanted to go.
Right.
Because it was just always unified from the beginning. Is what I should say.
Right.
So we all felt on board. And I know we would have crossed the bridge when we got there, but that was just another reason for us to know that like, yes, the Lord is in this, and He's wanting us to do this.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. I mean, that would be a huge sign of the fact that everyone was on the same page and just having that piece about it. That's really cool. Because I know I was looking at your website and I think it said, what's the craziest thing you've ever done? Or like moving across country to do music. That is the craziest thing.
I didn't know a soul here. I mean, it was we were just like going to every church and young adults group we could just to like meet people. Like I would have met anybody. Going to random cashiers, like, will you be my friend? I don't know anybody here. And the Lord was so faithful, just really put some amazing people into our lives, even just from the short time of just being here, which was so good because we just didn't know anybody. We were just like, all right, God, we're here.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question and thought is, you know, making that big move like that. Like you said, you were born and raised. That was where your community was. Was there ever a point, what sounds like possibly there was, that you were like, I just need friendship, I need community? Or was that something that came together rather quickly?
That's a really good question. People for me are so important in my life. And I know that people and community is so much a part of what God wants in our lives. Like all throughout Scripture talks about like not isolating yourself and like loving others and serving the church, and you know, it talks so much about like friendship and, you know, working with people and what to look for in people. And I know that people is such an important thing to God. And I'm somebody who I need to be around people. Like I can get lonely. Like if I am not plugged into a really solid community. And so there were definitely some times of loneliness and in just different seasons of my life. I was very close with my older sister, and she got married and moved away. She moved to South Dakota when she got married, and that was just another season of like change and loneliness. And we went to several churches, and it just transitions and changes are not always easy for me too. And so there were definitely times of like loneliness and like, okay, God, like now we're here, like am I supposed to meet, like am I doing something, like I'm just supposed to like stand on a street corner with a sign like be my friends, like, and during those seasons it definitely pulled me closer to the Lord for sure. And I'm very thankful for that. It also just really made me value and treasure the friendships I have now. But I have definitely been lonely. It takes time to build community, and that's something that I really learned, is that you can't just like meet somebody for the first day and just, you're my best friends. Like it takes so much intentionality and time. And I've really been so grateful for the people who've poured into me since moving here, and very thankful for the communities I found here. But it definitely takes time, and there's been definitely times of loneliness. Absolutely. And
I think that's so interesting because a lot of people, at least from my perspective, like when I was sort of on the outside looking in before I came to Nashville, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's a city of artists, it's a city of creative people that love Jesus. Like why would you not want to go there and everyone's going to be your friend? And then when I got here, I was like, okay, this is a little different than what I was anticipating. And so I imagine in the music industry, you probably experienced some of that as well. And so I guess maybe my question would be, is there anything on that topic that you have perhaps had to deal with, like expectations being different than what you expected? I mean, did you come into this with like a lot of expectations of maybe feeling like God's going to do this, this, and this, or was it more of like total blind faith? We have no idea what's going on. Or did you have some of those things of like, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen, and then there was like a delay and it wasn't really happening?
A mix of both. There were definitely, some of it was like we have no idea what to expect, and so like any information we took in, we were like, oh, okay, that's how this works, or oh, okay, this is what's to be expected. And then the other half was just definitely like knowing, okay, God, you've called us here. And I would say that there were definitely times where it's like, all right, you know, God's going to bring us this and he's going to do this. And when that was delayed, that was definitely like difficult, because it's like, you know, okay, God, we know you've called us here, and like really waiting here. And I would say that it was definitely like when outside of Nashville, if you say you're in a band, it's like, oh my word, no way, like, you know, that's so cool. And then I would say like in Nashville, people are like, oh, that's cool, like, you know, my whole family's like, you know, it's like it's very my normal. Cousin leads, you know, is lead guitarist for this group, and my sister is, you know, head singer for this band, and it's like everybody's in music, and in a way it's really good, because it really keeps you like humble and grounded and learning, just realizing that you're not like the only band in the country who's, you know, going after dreams. Like it really challenges us all to like work hard and perfect our craft. And to really get good at what we do and to be different, stand out, and work hard and do what we do well. But it's also encouraging because it's like there's so many people around you that you can say like, okay, now when I was in your shoes, like this is what happened. You're like, oh, okay, like that's normal. Like, you know, it's totally normal to feel like lost at times or confused or like to hit a writer's block or to, you know, want to break sometimes for just being on the road or on all the time or stuff like that. And so definitely a mix of both. But I would say that within our family, we rebranded because our band was Citizens of Glory for a bit, the name of it. And then we rebranded to Shaw, which is our last name. I just realized I've never said the name of our band. It's the band Shaw. It's our last name.
In case you're wondering.
It's Shaw, and that's our last name, and that's the name of the band. Well, when we did a rebrand of August of 2021 is when we rebranded. Okay. And even within our family, there was like several people who were like, okay, you know, what about this direction? Should we go here? Should we go here? And so finding that unity was, and learning how to do like, okay, what's business, what's family, you know, because it's our parents are not like on stage in the band. They're not like a band member, but they're definitely involved in, obviously they're our parents and we want them to be involved. But just kind of learning like, okay, what's business, what's family, what's like work, what's like, okay, no, this is my dad talking, you know, and so all of that was a huge transition. And still to this day, we're always working through that and working through that. I would say that just doing family and business and music together is a huge blessing, but it's also brought in a lot of dynamics, which were some unforeseen, because it's like, oh yeah, I didn't, you know, this is something new to work towards and through.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm sure there's so many things we could talk about, but maybe let's go in the direction of within the music industry. What has been maybe one of your like hardest moments where you just really had to push through, that maybe you felt like, oh, I'm not making any headway, or we're pouring all this into it and we're not seeing maybe the results that we want to see, or even just not feeling like we're making an impact. Like maybe you're pouring your heart into something and it's like the response is just not maybe what you expected. And then on the flip side of that, maybe talk about one of the most rewarding moments as well.
Oh, that's such good questions. When you were talking about the hardest parts, two different moments come to mind. One happened very recently, actually. So last summer, it's the summer of 2021, we were renting a house for 2 years when we first moved here, and from California. And then we just decided to rent because it's like we didn't know anything about this area. We wanted to find out where should we go, and so we just rented. And the housing market just exploded last summer. We were, of course, we're not anticipating that, and so we couldn't find a house to rent, to buy anything. I mean, it was like you could buy like a dollhouse for $1 million, or it was like, you know, just so we ended up just being out of our RV. And I mean, we were like not picky whatsoever. We were like, we will live anywhere. But obviously had to house like, you know, 11 people. But it was something that like I was like, there were so many times where I was like, okay, we're homeless. We you know, we came here for music. You know, there was all these expectations that we had for like timelines. I know you mentioned that earlier. And during that summer, it was really difficult because I just remember thinking like, okay, God, you brought us out here, and I feel kind of forsaken, you know, because it's like we don't have a place to live. Like, you know, there was so much going on with this, the transition of the rebranding, and there were so many times where I was just like, I just feel like I don't really know where to go. You know, I don't really like, is this a sign you don't want us here anymore? Or, that whole summer was just a huge walk by faith and not by sight moment for me. And I was so encouraged by reading through Psalms, where there were so many times David felt that way. And it was so encouraging to know that he was always very honest with the Lord. And I feel like it's important to be like that. Like, that's an example of how he was just open with the Lord. He was like, I feel sad, I feel discouraged. And then all throughout it, though, he was always thanking him and praising him, but he was always very honest with how he was feeling, and that taught me a lot, and it definitely grew my faith. But that was a moment of like, okay, I just don't know like where we're going here. And then there was a point recently, a couple weeks ago actually, I just felt like weren't we just here? Like, I feel like we worked so hard to like get past this place. There were so many different things within our band of like goals that we were wanting to do, and I just felt like we hadn't even scratched the surface, and I just felt really discouraged. I just felt like we're so far from where we want to go. We've poured so much time and money, and even in just a year, and we're in the same place. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is really disheartening. But I would say that as a band, when you're talking about like highlights and moments, the moments that stick out to me are the times where we have done a show and the audience has just loved it. And not so much that just like, oh, they loved us, but just the response was like, this is like the highlight of my year, or like I'm going through a really difficult time and like this is the first time I've smiled in a while, or you know, just watching your family also made me want to start music. Like those type of like life-changing comments and messages and responses are ones that I always hold on to and still think of, and those have always been a highlight. Always been a highlight. I would also say a highlight for me is just sometimes I'll be driving, and sometimes I'm in downtown Nashville or we're in the studio and we're on the music video set, and I'm just like, this is what I prayed for and have always wanted to do like my whole life. And sometimes it's just one of those moments where it's just like, thank you, Lord. Like I know that so many people would love to be here and to pursue their dream of music, and not everybody gets the opportunity. And I'm just so thankful that the Lord has allowed us to be here. And that's always a highlight for me. Like, we were in the studio yesterday, and I was just like, every time I'm in there, I'm like, thank you, Lord. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
So, those are the highlights and the low lights, I guess.
And I think that's so, like, such a good reminder for people that, I mean, the enemy obviously comes after our promise. Like, he comes after those dream seeds, like the things that God's placed inside of us. And we have to battle against that discouragement because, like you said, you are here. Like, God has brought you here for a purpose. And so, obviously, the enemy's going to try to come in and be like, you shouldn't even be here. Like, what are you thinking? You can't find the house. Like, your goals aren't happening. Just all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that's so relatable to everyone, no matter what their passion is, no matter what they're pursuing. It seems like the opposite is often happening, and it makes me think about, like, in the Word, where in the parable of the sower, where Jesus talks about, you know, these things that are going to try to come and steal the word, and all of the different opposition and things that happen, and just, it's like, that's actually a good thing, because you wouldn't be getting attacked in those areas if you weren't actually making progress, if you weren't actually where God wanted you. And so I just think that's really good.
I love that. Absolutely. I love what you said. It's so true, because spiritual warfare is something that I think that every believer should just be so aware of. And there was something that I read one time where it was talking about how in spiritual warfare, Satan loves to attack right before something big is going on, or right after. And I can attest to that.
So
it's always been right before something, like a breakthrough's coming, or it will always be like right after. Like this, you know, huge thing, and we finally accomplished this, and it's like all this doubt, all this, like, you know. And my dad loves to say a quote where he says, the breakdown comes right before the breakthrough. And I think of that all the time. That, like, anytime there's just, it's like that pressure, I'm always like, okay, what breakthrough's coming? Because we're all getting ready. It's like, we're getting there. And so I always think about that. But
and I mean, it kind of makes me think of, like, giving birth. You know, it's like you think about that, how intense the pain gets. Not that I've given birth, people. I don't know. But, you know, and it's like, but that ends up being, that's what creates the environment for this miracle to happen. And so it's like when you relate that spiritually, it's like when these things start happening, you can actually be encouraged and be like, okay, like, this is a good thing that I'm having these thoughts, or that I'm struggling with this.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really good. So we have, like, so many other fun things we could talk about. I'm going to pull out my notes and see what other fun stuff we've got. Maybe if you want to, so many different directions we could go. I guess maybe what encouragement would you give to people who are in a similar place? Like, they've taken the dreams that God's given them, they're being faithful with it, they're pursuing their goals, the things that God's called them to, but they're not seeing what they think they would like to see. Maybe, you know, they're not seeing the numbers grow, or they're not seeing, like, if they're selling something, or an entrepreneur, like, they're just not seeing growth in the natural. What encouragement would you give to people in that area?
That's a great question. What encouragement would I give? I would say two things. The first one is that there's always two sides, and I think that this is why it's so important to always pray for wisdom. One side of it is, like, you could definitely be doing something that's like, it's broken, you need to fix it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just time to, like, sharpen your skills or go in a different direction. And then there's some times where it's like, you have to get through the swamp to reach the castle. And I know that that just takes so much wisdom and prayer to know in every situation what to do when you feel stuck or when you feel like there's no growth. I would say that people are God's greatest resource, and I truly believe that, and I've seen that in my own life. Mm-hmm. I love reading other people's stories. I love getting my hands on books and movies and documentaries and YouTube videos and podcasts and written and spoken and one-on-one conversations, just like who is doing what I'm doing. I want to see their story, I want to read their story, I want to hear their story. And there's so many times where I'll be listening to someone who's like 15 years ahead of me, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's where I was, or that's where I am right now. And being encouraged that I'm not alone in different things. And some things just are really a part of the process. Yeah. And then also they can also tell you, like, you know what, here's a way that you can grow in or improve in. And so I would say just find somebody who's like 15 years ahead of you and what you're wanting to do, and just follow their story, read their story, and just always be a student of your own craft. And not just of the skill itself, but everything around the skill, like people skills and sales and, communication. And like to be a musician these days, you can't just have a good voice. Like you have to learn how to like communicate with people and how to like get on a camera and like be good at like social media and, all of this stuff. And sometimes that can get so overwhelming because you're like, all I want to do is sing.
Right. Can someone else handle everything else?
Exactly.
That's a lot.
But, just learning like, okay, what skill do I need to master now? And that's why so few people reach the destination they're wanting to go, because it is hard. And I would, to anybody who's like, oh my word, this is so hard, I would just like affirm that, like, yes, I hear you, it is so hard. It really is. But there's grace in the journey through the Lord, and there's also such a huge reward. And that's why it's so important to know your why, what you're doing, and to really know without a shadow of a doubt, like, you could be like shaking inside, crushed to 1,000 pieces, but every ounce of you would be like, I know in my heart of hearts I'm supposed to do this. And that's something that will get you through sometimes the most impossible and thinkable times of just like, feeling stuck or burnout or whatever. That purpose will get you through. Yeah,
that's so good. I love it. I hope you guys are taking notes, because this is all so good. Like, I'm going to remember that. I love it. So much wisdom. That's awesome. So where are you guys at with your band right now? Like, what are you guys working on right now? I know you had mentioned you kind of did a rebrand a while back, and I know that your Instagram had switched.
Yes. Talk about a setback. Like, we had this account with our old name, Citizens of Glory, and we had close to 30,000 followers on there. And when we rebranded to Shaw, Instagram wouldn't let us change our username, and we were like,
oh no,
we did everything we were supposed to for like over 6 months.
That's frustrating.
I know. It was like it was like I cried. I was like, my word, it's such a setback. So we had to restart our account, and just to see it be like 1,000 followers, 2,000. We were like, we used to be 30K. Like, it is so hard to transfer followers over to a whole new account. But yes, our Instagram is Shaw. We went through a rebrand. So where we're at right now is we have so many personal as well as just band goals in general, and we would love to just have our songs. We've always, a huge goal of ours is always to have like our song on the radio, and to be able to do like tours and, collaborate with other artists and really be able to have music be a career that we could do. And so we're working on that. We were just in the studio. We came out with our first single as a rebrand, and since being here in Nashville under that rebrand, that was the song Always. And so we came out with the music video and the single back in April. Okay. It was so much fun. It was March. I'm sorry, it was in March. Yeah, it was in March. And we are in the studio to release another song, and that's going to be coming out in August, Lord willing. That's the set date for that. And so new song, new music video. We want our music to be able to be fun, energizing, energetic. We want the message to really, the words of the songs to really, people will be like, oh, I relate to that, or that song really helps me, or like very affirming in their faith. And we also want all of our music to just really have such a good example for promoting healthy family relationships. And it is possible to do things with your siblings, and it is possible to have strong relationships and family centered and all of that stuff. So we're touring, we're doing music. We're just having fun. We're learning. We love doing it. It's just a blast. Yeah.
That's awesome. So fun. I love it. And like you said, just having the family-centered aspect, especially today and like the world and everything that's going on, like that alone is so powerful, just to be able to have a family that loves Jesus and
yes.
can set an example of doing things together and working together.
Yes.
Like, I think that's awesome. So good. Okay,
Yeah.
so we are about running out of time. This has been such a good conversation. But I just think maybe we can end with a couple random questions.
Oh, fun.
They're
Let's
just
do
fun.
it.
Okay,
I love
so
questions.
we've got favorite ice cream flavor. That's an important one.
So my favorite ice cream has always been for several years now is black cherry.
Oh, I love
I've always loved black cherry. My favorite color is pink too, obviously.
Me
You're wearing pink too.
I love pink.
My favorite color is pink, so I love the pink. But I just have always loved cherries, and I just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hands down.
That's a good
my
choice.
favorite
That's my
one,
mom's favorite too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. Favorite place that you've traveled?
Oh, that's a good one. The West Coast has always stood out to me. That's the most beautiful area, especially in the summertime. Montana.
Oh yeah.
California. That whole West Coast is just unmatched. Northern Idaho.
So true. It's
unmatched
gorgeous.
in
It's
beauty.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know how beautiful it was because I grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
And Michigan's gorgeous. And
Yes.
I was very biased. I was like, we have the most beautiful state
Right.
of them all. And then I went out west and I was like, oh, wow. I don't know if I can say that anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're just all so uniquely
Yeah.
beautiful. So,
Yeah.
good
It's
answer.
So,
Love
so
that.
beautiful.
Okay, and then my last question. If you lived in an alternate universe where you are not allowed to sing, you have zero talent, you're forbidden from being in the music industry, what would you do with your life? What career would you pick?
I love that. Okay, so two things stand out to me, and these are equal in my love for them.
Okay.
I've always thought it'd be fun to be someone's personal assistant, personal handler for somebody who's very active and does a lot of things. I love coordinating and doing events and heading stuff up and I do that now for our band, but it's different when you also have to be on stage
that's a
too.
lot.
So it's
My
a little
goodness.
overwhelming. But to be somebody's personal handler, I always thought that'd be so much fun. Or I would be fashion all the way, someone's personal stylist. I would pick out outfits and do all that stuff because I love
That's awesome.
I love
that.
Which girl doesn't? But yeah,
I know.
I
Let me know if you ever do that because I need a personal stylist. So
I would pick
that's
those
super
two.
fun.
That's a
I
good
love
question.
it. Well, thank you again so much for hanging out with us today, for sharing all of your tidbits of wisdom, and it's just been such a fun conversation.
So much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
So much fun.